Here we go. Hey, everyone. March 5th, 2025, the All Dolphins podcast. Joined today by Chris Perkins from the South Florida Sun Sentinel. How are you, Perk?
I'm doing good, man. I want to be the guest on show number 500. So, mark that down.
Okay.
I know you've already said I'm not good enough. You've already told me. I gotta make look.
Maybe I'll do a panel here with all our previous guests, including birthday shout out to Adam Beasley.
Yeah,
a longtime Dolphins beat reporter. Yep. Beasley turning 70. Was he 73 today? No, I kid. That's like me. But anyway, if you ever watch, and I hope you do, Bees, happy birthday. Got some news involving the Dolphins this Wednesday, March 5th. Been a while since the Dolphins have made any kind of news. Yeah. This involves it's not earth-shattering. It's some tendering of exclusive rights free agents, which is the first step in the pre-free agency process. The Dolphins tendering Cameron Good, the outside linebacker, and Keon Smith, the offensive lineman, who Chris Greer always telling us is somebody with a bright future. Even teams called about asking about him in a trade. And then the Dolphins did not tender wide receiver Grant Dubose. The process with the ERFA, as they're known, is basically, do you want him back or you don't? If you want him back, you make the qualifying tender, which in this case is slightly over $1 million. Then, as the name suggests, the player has no basically option. He signs a tender or he holds out. So basically, this is a process. If you want the guy back, you get the guy back. And Perk, nothing surprising. The Dolphins would want to get another look at Cameron Good and Keon Smith. I guess the story here is, why wouldn't they tender Grant Dubose? And I know before we hit record, we were discussing it. Go ahead and share your thoughts, and then I'll nod my head yes, or I'll try to add something worthwhile.
Well, we'll take care of the first two first. Cameron Good was a guy who was contributing on special teams until he had that unfortunate knee injury, and that's kept him out for a while. Keon Smith is a guy, as you said, that Chris Greer has spoken to us about. Keon Smith, one heck of a nice guy, always talks to you in the locker room, says hello. He's one of those guys who usually has a smile on his face and a really good attitude. I want to see what he can do at backup offensive tackle. We brought his name up before. I'm not sure that Keon Smith is ready to be a number 2 offensive tackle. We know that Ryan Hayes, the 7th round pick in 2023, is Correct. Not ready to be a number 2 offensive tackle. So if Keon Smith is not ready, you probably have to go out into free agency and get yourself a number 2. Yes. Yeah. There's the Teron Patrick Paul thing also. So that's the deal with those two. With Grant Dubose, I talked to him on Locker Cleanout Day. We both did. He told me that he was still a little foggy from the concussion, which was the Houston game. Is that right? Yeah. Yep. So, he told me that he was still in concussion protocol. He was confident that he was going to be able to play football again, but he did say that he was still a little fuzzy, and that was, let's see, Houston dropped him to 8-6. Is that right? So that was 4 weeks, 3 or 4 weeks after the concussion, I think, generally. So it's kind of a thing where, to me, that's kind of getting into long-term concussion symptoms. You think guys are in general over it in 2 or 3 weeks or ready to come back. This was like 4 or 5 week mark. So you wonder about Grant Dubose's short-term and long-term future in the NFL.
Yeah, the loss, to make sure we're on the record here, the loss dropped the Dolphins to 6-8.
8-6, yeah.
They won the next 2 to get the 8-8, and they lost the last one. And again, here's the thing, and to me is, there's no other reason other than uncertainty about his NFL future where the Dolphins would not bring him back, because it's a non-guaranteed tender. The worst that happens is you bring him back for the offseason, spring training. He looks like crap. You cut him, and you don't owe him anything. So the fact that and this is a guy they claimed off waiver from the Green Bay Packers last September. He played only 3 games because of injuries, 50 offensive snaps. It's not that the Dolphins saw that and go, well, yeah, no, there was nothing there. We made a mistake in claiming him. So yeah, again, it's practically, I don't want to say it's certain, but it's kind of obvious that would be the issue. And it's one of those, you mentioned Cameron Good before that, and then the injury sustained against the Buffalo Bills in the 2023 season finale. It was one of those catastrophic plays where the result of the play is bad and there's a significant injury. And there's only other one I can think of where somebody sustained a major injury on a touchdown by the opponent, because if you recall, he got hurt on the punt return for a touchdown that tied the game 14-14 after the Dolphins had led into the early fourth quarter part. 2007 against the New England Patriots, the Dolphins had not one but 2 guys tear an ACL on a long touchdown pass from Tom Brady to Randy Moss in the end zone. He outjumped 2 defenders. It was Ronaldo Hill and Cameron Worrell, and both of them fell wrong in the end zone while Randy Moss is coming down with the ball, and both of them tore an ACL. That, you want to talk about the most damaging play in Dolphin history in terms of injuries and result of the play. That might be it.
Jerome Baker was injured on a touchdown, right? Didn't he get leg whipped by somebody on a touchdown?
I think they had stopped. Either he scored or they stopped him like at the 3-yard line. It was at the end of a really long play, but I think they got him out of bounds. It was against Washington. They got him out of bounds before he scored, I want to say. So, anyway. So the next order of so now the Dolphins also have 3 restricted free agents, and before the league year starts next Wednesday, March 12th, we're a week away from free agency, from the new year. Dolphins have 3 restricted free agents, and they are Kader Kohu, Anthony Schwartz, and I'm going to forget the third one, Quentin Bell. There you go.
Nice. Very nice.
Well done. We have, how about 4 layers of tenders, and apparently this is new to me, and I wasn't aware of this, but this came from the NFL, so it's real. The strictly right of first refusal actually is back.
Oh,
yes, there is.
Wow.
It's right of first refusal plus original round, which is a slightly higher tender. Then it's right of first refusal plus second round pick if you don't match, and then right of first refusal plus first round pick if you don't match. And the numbers go from 3 to 5 or something. Of those 3, my guess is they definitely tender Kader Kohu. I'm told to look maybe just the smallest tender, just the right of first refusal. Quentin Bell and Anthony Schwartz is not getting tendered.
No,
take your shot on the market. And with Quentin Bell, maybe right of first refusal, or do you want to not commit $3 million to him?
I would, just because he's a serviceable player. He can play from scrimmage. He can help you in special teams. I think that he's young enough and he's skilled enough that he's got some upside to him. And if he doesn't become a starter this year, that's fine. He can contribute on special teams, so you will get some use out of him. I think you do it, right of first refusal.
He said doo-doo. This is a level of professionalism you can expect on the All Dolphins podcast. I'm sorry. Yes, I'm going to plead guilty to liking Beavis and Butthead. I'm sorry. I actually found it funny. Nice, very subtle, low-key look at teenager life or whatever. And the Beavis and Butthead skit on Saturday Night Live, I don't know, 6 months ago, was completely hilarious. I don't know if you ever saw it, but
didn't see it.
Oh, check it out. Google Saturday Night Live Beavis and Butthead and come back and say thank you. Thank you, Poop, for
right.
It's hilarious. Okay, so those moves are going to happen. Usually that happens like right before the day of on March 12th. What would you suggest, or what is your anticipation as the next big move we see from the Miami Dolphins?
Bradley Chubb restructure. I think that's the next big move because you've got Teron's money, you get Chubb's money, which I think could be maybe $13 million. You got $11 million from Teron, so this would give you money to go get at least one big name free agent Possibly two, but I don't think you're gonna. I don't. That doesn't make any sense to get two guys who are gonna cost you, 10 million a year. So you can get one and then get a number of other free agents have money to sign your 10-member draft class, and and really, and by the way, Chubb's money will. The way that they'll do this is it won't become available until after June 1st, which was the case last year with Xavier Howard. I believe the year before with Byron Jones, right? Do I have my years correct?
Sounds about right.
Yeah. So, this is something that the Dolphins are used to, but, if they restructure Chubb, most likely it would be, I'm sorry. I'm confusing
No,
my
not
things.
restructure, not restructure.
Right.
If they cut him post June 1.
Yes, that's right. I'm confusing my things. If they cut him and designate him post June 1st, I'm sorry,
Right.
then that money is available after June 1st. But if they just restructure, yes, that money you could get maybe 13 million, and that would be available immediately. I'm sorry. So, but basically, you could get yourself. It's the timing of when you would spend the money. And here's one thing, Poop, that I would watch very carefully. As you remember last year, Chris Greer said they did not want to get a veteran backup quarterback because they wanted to preserve the compensatory picks that they would get from Wilkins and Rob Hunt. They could get a compensatory pick from Javon Holland this year. I don't think they would take the same approach as far as, we want to preserve that compensatory pick. I think the situation that they're in, you need to use this year to set yourself up for one final Super Bowl run next year with this same core of Tua and Tyreek and Jalen Waddle and Jalen Ramsey and perhaps Chubb and Zach Sealer and these guys. So I would think that you're not going to hold a whole lot back this offseason. If you have the money, you will spend it prudently, but not on, two big ticket guys. One big ticket guy and then spread it out like you did last year with Jonnu and Saran Neal and Aaron Brewer and Jordan Brooks, Calais Campbell, those types of signings.
Okay, a couple of things here. Yeah, and last year, let's point out that the highest per year average contract they gave out to a free agent from another team was to Jordan Brooks, and it was a shade under $9 million, 3 for 26. And if we're talking Bradley Chubb, when we're talking about a restructure, I think we're talking about a pay cut.
Yes.
And the question, so are you confident that Bradley Chubb is going to be willing to take a pay cut as opposed to saying, sorry, Dolphins, cut me if you have to, but I'm not doing this?
I think that Chubb should be willing to do that because of his age and injury history that, out there on the market. I don't think that it's going to be very kind to him. Now, the thing that works in Chubb's favor, if you are willing to take a haircut financially, there's a contender out there that would probably welcome you as kind of a finishing piece. But if you're looking to, get Dolphins type money, you're probably going to be in, New Orleans doesn't have money to spend. Yes. You're going to be on a bad team, most likely.
Yeah, and I'm looking here. Bradley Chubb's base salary for 2025 is $19.45 million.
Yeah.
None of it guaranteed.
Yeah.
Cap number is $28.7 million. So there's no way in hell this happens. And then next year it's the exact same base salary that he has. He's got no more guaranteed money. Yeah, that to me is the biggest question. And my guess is there have been talks that have taken place with Bradley Chubb's representation that will continue to take place. And then there could be some other restructures as well, because we've seen other teams, the Cowboys, just cleared up. I think it was like something like $50 million in cap space today by restructuring CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott. Those are restructures, not pay cuts. This is what could happen, for example, with Tua. Certainly is a restructure candidate where the Dolphins could say like $19 million off the cap, which is not an insignificant number. It kind of sort of extends your commitment to him as your
Right.
quarterback, or adds another year of where it would be painful if you wanted to decide to move away from him. And there are other players where that could be done as well. I should mention, you talked about before a backup tackle situation. This is what I'm going to point out on Miami Dolphins on SI.com. I had a story yesterday about Kendall Lamb. It put an Instagram reel, took part in the Pro Athlete Community Business Combine in Arizona, and he was talking about what he learned, and then like life lessons and all that. Then he turned around to like he's progressing and he's about to hit the gym, and year 11 is going to be better than ever, or something along those lines. Mention year 11. Guess what? Year 11 would be his 11th season in the NFL. So kind of saying it without saying it, he wants to return and play. And to me, he's not a bad option if the Dolphins eventually do decide to move on from Teron Armstead, despite his generous offer to take a pay cut to the veteran base salary minimum, which I don't see reflected on the salary cap website. So I don't know if that's actually been done yet, or he just has made the comment that he was willing to do it. I don't mind Kendall Lamb as a backup tackle for Patrick Paul on the left side, Austin Jackson on the right side, and even as a fourth tackle if Teron Armstead decides to return.
Kendall Lamb would be great, both for performance reasons and for culture/character reasons. Kendall Lamb is a guy you never have to worry about. He does his work. He's a good influence on the young players. He talks to the younger guys. You see him last year talking to Storm Duck to his right, Robert Jones to his left, in the locker room there, where he was seated. He's just a good guy that you want on your team. He can still play, as we've seen in the last 2 years. So if Kendall Lamb wants to come back, definitely you take him back. I thought he told somebody late last season, it might have been Omar Kelly of the Miami Herald, that he would ideally like to play closer to his home of North Carolina. So we'll see how that figures into things. But if I'm the Dolphins and Kendall Lamb wants to come back, heck yeah, that solves a problem for me. Come back, definitely.
Who's that reporter's name? What was
Omar Kelly, right? Yeah.
Something. Okay, I think I've heard of him.
Yeah. I think we both might have worked with him.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then, but that also depends on whether the Panthers, who are more in line towards building with young players, would want to make an offer to Kendall Lamb. That makes sense. There's also something to be said that sure, maybe he wants to play closer to home. There's something to be said for the familiarity, A, of the scheme with the Dolphins, and B, of the organization, and playing for Butch Barry, playing for Mike McDaniel, playing for Frank Smith. So who knows? We'll see how that plays out. And you mentioned the salary cap and the machinations with the the restructures and all that. We could do a 5-hour show. Oh, no, I'm sorry. The compensatory pick formula. That's what I meant. Sorry. The compensatory pick formula. We could do a 5-hour show because it's so complicated. I actually looked at the CBA myself and looked at the section with the compensatory pick, and it was like, oh man, I got a headache. Mm-hmm. It's very complicated. It basically deals with compensatory free agents. Those are guys who reach a certain level of annual average on their salary, and then you have to factor in postseason accolades the next season, playing time, which is where the Dolphins got killed with Christian Wilkins because he didn't get the playing time. So he'd have been a third-round pick with a normal Christian Wilkins season, but because he didn't get the playing time to add on to his value, to his CFA value, based purely on his salary, he fell a little below the cusp of the fourth round. To be made official when the NFL awards the compensatory picks, which last year was right about this time. The Dolphins still expected to get 3 of those, but it is very complicated. And you mentioned if the Dolphins lose Javon Allen, the thing is, it's got to be also a net effect. If the Dolphins sign somebody, it's basically the total net loss of CFAs, of compensatory free agents, those who make enough money. And the Dolphins don't have a lot of guys who, if they leave, will get over like the threshold. Last year, the last threshold guy the Dolphins had was Deshaun Elliott, who I believe got $3 million a year from the Steelers. And of all the Dolphins UFAs, mind you, the street free agents don't apply. I think it means Kendall Fuller. The only guy who made more than $3 million last year was Javon Holland, and if my memory serves. Although Calais Campbell this year, who will be a UFA, would pass that threshold. I would pretty confidently say he's not signing for $2 million like he did last year, which was maybe part of the reason the Dolphins hung on to him instead of winding up putting him on waivers so he could hook up with a contender. That combined with the fact that the Dolphins were not eliminated from playoff contention until the last week of the regular season. Man, crazy day around the NFL, Perk.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So we had Joe Tooney being traded from the Chiefs to the Bears. We had DK Metcalf is asking for a trade. Max Crosby became the highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL. Wasn't there another trade? That was
well, didn't Kevin Lockett? Didn't they say he's going to get released from Seattle?
Kevin Lockett. Christian Kirk's going to get released from the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yep.
Yesterday, Jonah Jackson from the LA Rams traded to the Chicago Bears. Those will not become official until March 12th because you can't make a trade. You can agree to a trade. You can't announce it. Doesn't become official. Anything? And did I mention DK Metcalf requesting a trade?
Yep.
Go ahead.
I would say this. Here's what kind of stands out to me. Chicago really trying to bone up on these offensive linemen, and it's going to clash with the Dolphins at some point. You would think we'll see what happens, especially with the guards. We'll see what happens there. But that's one thing that's really going to be worth watching is who gets in the Dolphins' way. If the Dolphins go for one high-priced guard, we still don't know how the Dolphins are going to break this thing down in free agency because, look, the Dolphins could get their inside linebacker with Terrell Dodson. They could get their interior defensive lineman with Deshaun Hand, and then maybe you spend more money on guard and safety. So we don't know how the Dolphins are going to, break this thing down. But watch Chicago with the offensive with the guard picture. That could be something that gets in the way for the Dolphins.
Yeah, and it's just not a great free agent guard class at all. And I had somebody on Twitter ask me, somebody asked me about why wasn't this a move? Because Joe Tooney is being traded for a 2026 fourth-round pick, which is nothing except he's scheduled to make $16 million this year, and he wants a new contract. Yep. This is where, and for some anybody wondering why wouldn't the Dolphins do that? Because they can't afford to take on a $16 million a year guard who's may become more expensive than that. The Bears have cap space up the wazoo. Yep. It's perfect for them. It didn't make sense for the Dolphins. And then I read, as I wrote on Miami Dolphins on SI.com, one guy who you look on the free agent market at guard, Aaron Banks, 49ers, same scheme, play with Mike McDaniel, NFL Network's Tom Pelissero, a guy who's in the know, is writing that he could get like a Robert Hunt type deal.
Yeah.
And I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
First of all, I don't know if I think he played hurt a little bit, but I looked at him in the game against the Dolphins in December. I was like, exactly. It's like, whatever. And that's 16 or 18 million a year. Not happening.
No. And look, the guard class, when you look at who's out there, you do have Aaron Banks, Will Freeze in Indy, and Aaron Banks, James Daniels in Pittsburgh, Mekhi Becton, and here's the other thing with the Dolphins. When Chris Greer says it's time that we took offensive line seriously, they've taken center seriously with Connor Williams and Aaron Brewer. They've taken tackle seriously with Teron Armstead and Austin Jackson. So we're talking about guard. How seriously are you going to take the guard position? That's the big question because, look, Freeze had a broken leg last year. He's coming off of that. Daniels had the Achilles last year. He's coming off of that. Mm-hmm. Becton is kind of a one-hit wonder at guard right after washing out at tackle. Kevin Zeitler of Detroit is 34 years old. Tevin Jenkins has had an injury-marred career. Dalton Risner, our friend out there from Denver who played for Butch Berry, he's out there again. But is he getting serious about, like, which of those tell you we're getting serious about guard? And what does it mean to get serious about guard? Is it in free agency you get a 25, 26-year-old? Is it in the draft you get a first or second rounder? I don't know what it means when you're going to get serious about guard. So that's something else we will watch and monitor. What did Chris Grier mean when he said it's time we get serious about the offensive line? I think he said serious, right? I think that was the word that he used.
Yeah, and no, and then Brandon Scherf, you
Sure.
mentioned him as well. He's also 31 or
Right.
32 years old.
Yeah.
And here's the thing: Dolphin fans are going to get here's the key word, queasy, if the Dolphins sign a guard with an injury history of any kind.
Yes.
That still may be the best approach. I mean, it still may be that Tevin Jenkins or James Daniels,
right,
the best guy to get.
Yep. I like Banks, but yeah, it's there's I don't know that there's a potential Pro Bowl guy out there. And then yes, when you look at Zeitler and Scherf, who are in their 30s, are you really building for the future, or are you getting a Band-Aid? So again, what is getting serious at guard? What does that look like in 2025 offseason for the Dolphins?
I think it means a guard in free agency and a guard in the draft at some point before too long. I think that's what it would mean to me. The Dolphins have 3 free agent guards: Isaiah Wynn, Liam Eichenberg, Robert Jones. I would expect at least one of them, if not 2, to re-sign. Like, for example, I think Robert Jones is a pretty good candidate to re-sign.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. I think Liam Eichenberg is as good as gone because he needs and should want a change of scenery. And I think I'd probably call Isaiah Wynn 50-50. So I think one or two of those guys comes back, and then the Dolphins pick somebody in the draft. Could it be a first-round pick, like tackle that they convert to guard? If Membu from Missouri is there, he'd certainly be attractive. Kelvin Banks Jr. from Texas, he could be interesting. Might be maybe a tad high for him, but not egregious.
Is that getting serious about guard, converting a tackle?
Yes. Laramie Tunsil.
Well, but he was a stopgap, and so was Mike Pouncey. Like, is that getting serious about guard, converting somebody for a year, or somebody who has only played, in Becton's case, a year of guard? Is that?
Yes, because, for example, if Laramie Tunsil had played a second year at guard, for example, if Brandon Albert had shown you that he had a couple more years left, would you have had an issue with Laramie Tunsil playing guard in 2017? I'd have been good with it, because he was very good as a rookie in 2016. So, no, I don't think it's an issue. And some of those guys just bring you the added value of being a tackle, but I don't see any reason why they shouldn't be successful as guard, like Banks or Membu. Another move around the NFL today we forgot to mention, because we have to mention it, another backup quarterback option for the Dolphins is Gardner Minshew, who's going to be released on March 12th. Doesn't necessarily excite me, but if it turns out that everybody else signs somewhere else and it's Gardner Minshew or Tyler Huntley, what say you?
Oh gosh, boy, I say call Ryan Tannehill. Yeah, call Tannehill. I don't like either of those options, really.
Okay, damn.
Hey, let me ask you this about Isaiah Wynn. Could you bring him back and pencil him in as the starter and then go get another starting guard in free agency or the draft, knowing that Wynn is not fully healthy? Maybe, right? That's a risk, right? That's a big roll of the dice. Yeah. And he's the only one of the 3 who, if he came back, he could be penciled in as a starter. But in reality, if any of the 3 come back, I would make them earn the starting job. I would get a starter ahead of them, and if they beat them out in training camp, so be it. But I don't think I could bring back any of them as the starter, as you could maybe with Terrell Dodson or Deshaun Hand.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, and then unfortunately, yeah, there's a lot of injury history going around all over the place, and Dolphin fans are going to have to accept. And in fact, actually, I wrote about this on the site Miami Dolphins on SI.com, where all your content is free, and there's a lot of it, and some of it's actually really good. That there was a study where the Dolphins came in. I want to say was third in the NFL in terms of man games lost in 2024. So they were hurt by injuries. Um, Detroit Lions actually were second, and yet still had the crazy good season. So yeah, they're going to have. Unfortunately, yeah, a lot of the guys you're going to be looking at have some injuries. And you cannot eliminate every player who's had a significant injury. Otherwise, you're going to limit yourself in terms of the options. You can't have a bunch of guys. And I think somebody made a good point to me on social media is that's fine. What you can't do necessarily, and that may have been you actually, is devote major resources, whether it's a big contract or a very high draft pick if we're dealing with a player who has the major injury history. Okay, now wide receivers on the market or could be or getting released. Kirk, Lockett, DK Metcalf. I'm going to forget some. I mean, there's a whole bunch of them. Amari Cooper, Devontae Adams, DeAndre Hopkins. It's a lot of big names. So who is going to be this year's OBJ for the Dolphins?
Well, boy, I don't mind getting an OBJ, and sometimes you're going to take an L. Here's what I do mind is getting another speedy receiver. If
Okay.
you miss, fill a need. And we talked about this Monday, right? That, get yourself a short yardage guy or a red zone guy or a goal line guy or a big guy who can go up and make the catch in traffic. Like, you need to fill some roles on this team. Don't just get a running back. Get somebody who fills that short yardage need, who's going to help you out on 3rd and 1 or 3rd and 2 or red zone or goal line. You've got to fill some needs on this team. You've got talent. You've got speed. Now let's get some things that fit, And so at the guard, you need somebody who can run block, right? That's kind of what you need. You need a bigger bodied receiver. At safety, you're going to need somebody who's a kind of a take charge type of a guy who can get everybody lined up the way Poyer and Holland were able to do. So I don't know if you can get 2 young guys back there, which, I don't think that was the plan anyway. But you've got to fill some needs here. You've done the raw talent thing. Now you've got to look at how did we lose games the past 3 years, and how can we address that? And to me, that's by making your team a more complete team. I would say to you, and I might write this column later, I don't think Jalen Hurts is much of a better quarterback than Tua. Jalen Hurts is in a better situation than Tua.
Without question.
And that's where the Dolphins have to get with this team. You've got to put everybody in a better situation, from Mike McDaniel to Anthony Weaver to Tua to Zach Sealer to Jalen Ramsey. You've got to put everybody in a better situation, and that's by choosing better personnel, to me.
Okay. Along those lines, we should mention that with the tenders with those guys, depending on with the tenders to the 2 ERFAs, the Dolphins now are back over the salary cap, which means that before next Wednesday, they have to get under the salary cap. They have 49 players under contract right now. For offseason purposes, the top 51 cap numbers that count against the cap limit, which is now $79.2 million. There will be a lot of restructuring, extensions, cuts between now and March 12th. A couple of names I forgot to mention on the wide receiver market. Stephon Diggs,
Yes.
pending UFA. Keenan Allen, pending UFA. Our friend Omar is a big fan of Keenan Allen. Yep. Apparently the word is he wants to play, either return to the Bears or play in California. So, and Keenan Allen was once a tremendous wide receiver. He's still a great veteran. He's got a veteran savvy, but he was never fast, and the wheels are not getting any faster. Chris Godwin's another one. Mike Williams, another one. You want a 50-50 ball catcher? There's your guy right there.
Yep.
But again, he's also slow and he's always hurt. And here's the thing with all these big names, that unlike OBJ, who was kind of looking for a shot and wasn't necessarily getting a big market, I don't know that you can get any of those guys for a reasonable amount of money. And of course, we can debate on what's a reasonable amount of money for a third wide receiver who would be that kind of big name.
And a third wide receiver who might be the number 4 receiver in the offense behind Jonnu Smith, right? Tyreek, Jalen Waddle, and Jonnu. So yeah, but that's why I'm bigger on the role than the name. You've got guys who can catch the ball at 1, 2, 3 with Tyreek, Waddle, and Jonnu. Now let's get a big body guy, et cetera, et cetera.
Which reminds me, okay, one last thing. I promise it's going to be the last thing, and then we'll get out of here. Your thoughts? The Las Vegas Raiders apparently are entertaining the idea of trading Michael Mayer, their second-round pick out of Notre Dame a couple of years ago, who looks like a pretty interesting player. Thing is that they drafted Brock Bowers last year at 13 overall, despite having Mayer already on the roster, because they said this guy's too special. We got to take him. And props to the Raiders because they nailed it. The dude's a dude. If you can get Michael Mayer for a 4th-round pick, why wouldn't to me, he becomes immediately your second tight end as a good complementary guy to Jonnu Smith. Is that something you would have any hesitation in doing?
Boy, I would
starting with there's hesitation right there. So.
It is. I need 2 guards, a power back, and a slot receiver. Again, I've got my 2 wide receivers and a tight end. Mayer might be a luxury more than a necessity at this point. He's a quality player. He's better than Julian Hill, right? There's no doubt about that. Zero doubt. You make your team better at tight end, but do you make your offense better? You can't. Boy, do you have to go down a level at guard or slot receiver if you get or running back? Your power back.
Why?
Just with the availability of funds. He's
on his rookie contract with 2 years left, and I think he's making like 1.6 mil next year.
Okay, I thought he was going to be around 3.
Let me double check here. Continue talking as I look.
But again, the Dolphins they've got a decent amount of offensive talent. To me, you've got to fill your roles. And that, to me, is where this offense is going to get better. Power running back, a receiver who can go up and make some catches in specific situations. This offense has got to be able to run the ball, and it's got to be able to move the ball in short yardage situations, in red zone situations, in goal line situations. You've got to give yourself more options. Michael Mayer would do that. He would definitely do that. But are you better off getting him as opposed to, well, I guess I'm just thinking for if you get one thing, you lose another is what I'm thinking. And maybe not for salary reasons, but for 53-man roster reasons even. I look at them as more of a luxury than a necessity. I think there are other things that are necessities.
But to me, it's a very simple way of upgrading the tight end position. Again, I'm looking at a 1.6 salary in 2025. Right. You got him under contract for 2026 at $2 million.
That's good. Money is not an issue.
No, correct. Correct. And let's say, and under my scenario is if the Raiders are willing to take a 4th-round pick for him, to me, it's an absolute no-brainer personally. But I haven't been asked, and I don't know if that will be wind up being the price. Obviously, it's going to depend on the number of suitors, teams that are interested in making that trade, and maybe because remember he was a 2nd-round pick in 2023.
Yeah, good player.
No, yes, very good.
Definitely.
That's going to wrap it up. He is Chris Perkins. Find his work at South Florida Sun Sentinel, and Mr. Perkins as a Dolphins deep dive on Thursday at noon. Is that correct, Mr. Perkins?
That is correct. Me and David Veronis, we will break down the Dolphins free agency, talk about options, talk about money, talk about some of the same stuff that we talked about, talk about some other stuff that we didn't talk about. But me and Veronis at noon on Thursday. I can't have it be a copycat show.
You can't, sure. Well, for us, the opinion hopefully will be different. And you're going to have, and you have something on your show that you don't have here, the Veronis bonus.
That's right.
I can't come up with something alliterative like that. Maybe the poop scoop, I guess.
There you go.
There you go. We're up to 14.9. We're almost there at the 15,000. I have said I will wear some sort of Dolphin gear when we get to 15,000 for that episode. So let's keep it going. Please like, subscribe. Check out the written content at Miami Dolphins on SI.com. We will be back again some point. Until then, thanks everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day.